Suddenly, the gun that built the empires of the 19th century began firing 5,800 rounds per minute, 5 times faster than the fastest machine guns in existence in the 1960s. Melvin Johnson's Gatlings were mounted on the sides of World War II C-47s, Huey gunships, and giant C-130 cargo planes, and taken to Vietnam. The planes circled villages, tilting their wings down to the left and opening fire with 3 side-mounted Gatlings. These 3 Gatling clusters accurately delivered 16,000 rounds a minute.
When you shoot one of those things, it's just like somebody ripping canvas, but real loud. You know, it's just this tearing sound because it all goes off together. You just get this huge flame coming out next to you.
Here, there's no need for a return mission.
The scorched earth policy. Defoliate the forest and depopulate the countryside. Survivors were rounded up and taken to camps near Saigon. Among them was Laylee Hayslip.
I learned to speak English. I see American as another human being. When he took off his uniform, he put down his gun. I get used to it. When they offer me $400 to sleep with 2 Americans, that $400, I can buy a house for my mother. I buy a lot of food for my mother, my father, and my son. But my heart is still with the Viet Cong in the village.
Chemical weapons, the M16, the Gatling, massive bomb offensives. None could win the war for the United States. By 1975, it was all over. South Vietnam fell, and the American ambassador was forced to flee from the roof of the embassy in Saigon. More than 58,000 Americans died in the war. The Vietnamese dead, soldiers and civilians, numbered nearly 2 million. But Mikhail Kalashnikov's AK-47, the simple weapon for the simple soldier, won a victory for one of the poorest peoples on earth. In the 1970s, still reeling from its defeat, the US was in economic crisis. Its long post-war boom slowed into recession. Revolutionaries like Ernesto Che Guevara were turned into heroes, martyrs with AK-47s. The US defeat also gave succor to revolutionary movements around the world. Mikhail Kalashnikov's AK-47 became a symbol of Third World liberation.
В каждой деревне есть мальчишки с именем Калаш. Это, говорит, бойцы, которые воевали с вашим оружием, вернулись к мирному труду, и первых своих сыновей называют именем вашего автомата Калаш. Ну разве конструктору это плохо? Вот сколько у меня внуков, детей.
With the United States weakened, the Soviet Union was ready to contest American arms superiority and support Third World struggles around the globe.
И вот там они нарисовали земной шар и показали, что автомат уже вот-вот замкнет кругом.
The US couldn't afford another Vietnam, but it had other ways to fight its wars. It poured military support and weapons into the Third World. With the USSR doing the same, the Cold War turned into a war fought by surrogates.
We had proxies, that is, the United States and the West, and the Russians had their proxies. In some cases, it would be a government fighting an insurrection, and the government was pro-Western government, and in other cases it would be a leftist government, and we would be supplying the insurrection.
God bless them for being Contras, and so it makes me a Contra too.
Managing these insurrections became a major part of the covert business of the Cold War.
By the 1980s, the US was supporting at least 43 wars in Central America and Africa. For a while, the USSR kept pace. In the 10 years after the Vietnam War, 40 million machine guns and assault rifles flooded the world.
You had a proliferation of arms from the competition between the United States and the Soviet Union. These were the hot wars of the Cold War period.
But one night in December 1979, the Soviet Union, its economy already crippled by the arms race, took a fatal decision. Hundreds of giant Soviet transports and helicopter gunships landed at Kabul airport, Afghanistan. The Soviet Union was determined to keep a friendly government in power. The cost would be high. The invasion was resisted by the Mujahideen, a Persian word meaning warrior. They'd stop at nothing to defeat the Soviets. Their weapon of choice, the Kalashnikov. December 1979. Fearing that Afghanistan would fall to Islamic militants, Russia in an attempt to install a more moderate government. But their presence only added fuel to the fire, as bands of Muslim holy warriors, known as the Mujahideen, fought hard to evict the Soviets from their country. Tahir Khan commanded the Mujahideen's southeastern province.
People are very religious, they don't want any foreigners to come there, The people are fighters. They like fighting.
The Mujahideen stole AK-47s from dead Soviets, but they needed more. Their willing supplier, the United States government. So began America's greatest covert operation of the Cold War.
I came many times to Washington, and I don't know to whom I was talking, but I was talking with different people, And we will tell them that what is our need, and what do we need for the fighting.
The US government provided money, intelligence, training, and to conceal their involvement, Russia's own AK. But to get the AKs into Afghanistan, the Americans first traveled to the Principality of Monaco. At the beginning of the 20th century, Monte Carlo was the home of arms trader Sir Basil Zakharov, nicknamed the Merchant of Death. 90 years later, Monaco was still the playground of arms dealers, like Saudi Adnan Khashoggi and American David Fortes, who moored their yachts in the harbor below the casino Zakharov once owned. The US turned to these arms dealers to get weapons to Afghanistan. The arms dealers were one link in a twisting chain, smuggling arms across the world. Crates of guns made at Kalashnikov's factory in the Soviet Union might wind their way through middlemen in Egypt or Belgium as part of a Soviet aid package. Eager for hard currency, the Egyptian government sold them for cash to an arms dealer who knew the CIA wanted them.
The arms dealer is not the villain of the piece. The arms dealer is a guy whose entire life is in the hands of the intelligence services on all sides that are using him. And if he gets into a bind or he does the wrong thing or if he becomes an embarrassment to anybody, he's totally expendable and he can count on either being killed or going to jail.
The arms dealer arranged for the guns to be shipped to Antwerp, a port known for its lax controls. There they were labelled as oil drilling equipment. The crates were then sold to Pakistan, an ally of the United States.
The Pakistani government will say to drug traffickers, look, we'll let you get to the border if in addition to the 50 kilos of heroin you're carrying, you'll carry 5, 6, 10 AK-47s.
The long and complex route gave the US what it needed: deniability.